Welcome to Shatter.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. It didn't come during an argument. No shouting, no slam doors. Just dinner. Takeout. Dim kitchen light humming overhead. She was picking at her salad with a plastic fork, scrolling her phone, barely looking up. I was halfway through asking if she wanted to watch something, just out of habit. When she set her fork down, finally made eye contact, and said it. "You're just boring now. Not cruel. Not sarcastic. Just flat. Pitying. Like a verdict that had already been signed, sealed, delivered. I didn't say a word. Not out of restraint, out of clarity. She looked at me like a man she used to know. Like something that had once sparked now failed to hold her attention. Her expression was the same one she gave to a movie she didn't want to finish. She went back to her phone like it was more alive than I was. And I just sat there. Still. Calm. But something inside me cracked, not from pain, but from realization. It hit me then. People don't call you boring when they love you. They call you boring when they've stopped respecting what you give. When they've already emotionally left, but haven't figured out where else to go. I thought about all the things I used to do. The spontaneous weekends. The inside jokes. The quiet way I remembered her coffee order. And how she slowly stopped noticing. Or maybe never really did. I used to think keeping things steady was the goal. That being dependable, grounded, was something to be proud of. Turns out, in her eyes, it made me forgettable. Funny how they call you boring. After you've spent years absorbing their storms. After you become the calm in their chaos. They start craving the chaos again. I didn't ask her what she meant. Didn't ask who she was comparing me to. Didn't beg for clarity. I just stared at her for a moment longer, then picked up my plate, rinsed it, and walked out of the kitchen. Not with anger. With decision. Because something changed that night. Not between us, but in me. I stopped trying to impress someone who already decided I wasn't enough. And I started preparing for the day. I'd hold the door open and not wait for her to come back through it. Most people expect a reaction. A raised voice. A wounded reply. Some desperate attempt to reclaim dignity. She thought I'd fight. Thought I'd beg her to explain, to take it back, to soften the blow. But I didn't give her that satisfaction. Instead, I went quiet. Not just verbally. I mean something deeper. Like a light inside me dimmed, and she didn't even notice. That night, after she dropped her little bomb, "You're boring now," she carried on like nothing had happened. Put her phone on the charger. Brushed her teeth. Crawled into bed like we hadn't just crossed a line we couldn't come back from. I lay next to her in the dark. Her breathing steady. Her back turned to me. And I stared at the ceiling, not with panic, but with peace. I was done. Done chasing affection like a dog waiting for a treat. Done earning what should have been freely given. The next morning, I didn't wait for her to wake up. No coffee on the counter like I used to make. No breakfast playlist humming from the kitchen. Just silence and space. She came down an hour later, confused. "Everything okay?" she asked, still in her robe. I nodded, rinsing my mug. "Yeah, all good." But the way I said it, she felt it. Because there's a version of all good that doesn't reassure. It warns. Over the next few days, I didn't change who I was. I stopped performing who she wanted. No more questions about her day. No check-ins during lunch breaks. No offers to grab her favorite snacks from the store. Not because I was punishing her. Because I realized I didn't owe her anything beyond basic civility. The intimacy? The effort? The partnership? That requires mutual presence. And she left a long time ago. I began to see her more clearly. How little she actually listened. How rarely she gave without expectation. How she mistook my steadiness for staleness. She started picking little fights, trying to provoke a spark. "You've been weird lately. You don't talk to me anymore." But I wasn't being weird. I was being done. It's hard to explain what it feels like when someone's words finally stop landing. They still speak. But you've stopped receiving. You're there, but not really. And that's the shift she never saw coming. Not an explosion. Not a breakdown. Just quiet removal. Like a light switch flicking off in a room she didn't know was already dark. She thought I was still trying. Still reaching. Still hoping. But I wasn't. I was observing. Preparing. Letting the final pieces of illusion fall. She didn't know it yet. But she was talking to a man who had already left the building. She didn't expect a response. Not a real one, anyway. The kind of comment she made, "You're just boring now." That was meant to sting. But not start a fire. She thought I'd sulk for a few days. Then work harder. Book a dinner. Buy flowers. grovel for a little affection. Instead, I packed her bags. Not in a dramatic, movie scene kind of way. No shouting. No, get out. Just methodical motion. Drawer by drawer. Shirt by shirt. Neatly folded. Lovingly ignored. I started in the guest room. Laid out her favorite suitcase on the bed, the one I bought her when she started traveling more for work. Funny. I hadn't seen that suitcase in months. She kept it in her closet like it was a part of some future she didn't want me in. As I filled it, I realized something. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was free. There's a peace that settles over you when you stop asking for someone to care. She found me halfway through packing, standing over her dresser, folding the navy sweater she never let me wash because I never did it right. Her voice cracked a little. What are you doing? I didn't rush to answer. Didn't even look up. Just making sure you have everything you need for your new life. Silence. Thick and uneven. She stepped into the room like it was a crime scene. Wait, she said, eyes darting from the half-zipped suitcase to my calm face. I didn't mean it like that. I finally looked at her. And she saw it. The absence. That something inside me had already closed the door. Even if the walls were still standing. You don't say something like that by accident, I said. No anger. No edge. Just fact. She blinked, trying to assemble a reaction. You're overreacting. I smiled, not because it was funny, but because it was expected. The gaslight was always the encore. No. I'm just done pretending this feels like love. I finished folding the last item. Placed it gently in the case. Zipped it shut. She stood there, frozen, waiting for me to come back to her emotionally. Like I always did. Like the fight was the foreplay. Like pain was part of the ritual. But this wasn't a pause. It was a process. Of letting her go with dignity. And letting myself go with clarity. If you're done with me, I said as I rolled the suitcase to the front door. Don't worry. I'll help you leave faster. She didn't follow. She didn't stop me. Because deep down, she knew. The only thing more painful than being left is realizing someone already left a long time ago. And you were just the last to know. The house didn't explode. It sank. No dramatic breakup. No slamming doors. No shattered glass. Just silence. That kind of silence that feels like fog. Thick, low, unavoidable. She stayed. For now. But the suitcase near the door said more than either of us had in days. It waited like a quiet decision, already made. She walked through the house like a stranger in someone else's life. Looking for signs of the man I used to be, the one who asked what was wrong. The one who pulled her in with warmth even when she pushed away with cold. But I was done playing warmth against fire. Done trying to comfort someone who weaponized distance. She lingered in doorways, started conversations she didn't finish. Want me to make something? I could pick up wine. You still want to watch that show? I'd nod. Or shrug. Sip my coffee. Return to the book I wasn't really reading. And the quiet? It filled every corner. At night, we slept in the same bed. But not together. Not really. Her back faced me. My breath stayed even. She shifted, waiting for me to react, to reach, to fight. I didn't. Because the opposite of love isn't hate. It's numb. I woke up earlier than usual. Showered longer. Left the house without saying a word. And when I returned, she looked at me like someone who'd lost something, but couldn't admit what. The emotional accountant in her couldn't balance the books. She'd thrown an insult. Expected drama. Got quiet devastation instead. She didn't know what to do with that. I drank my coffee like a man already living alone. Same cup. Same silence. Different purpose. The power had shifted, not in a loud, vengeful way, but in the way you realize you no longer need the thing you used to beg for. One night, I came home and found candles lit in the living room. Soft music playing. She sat on the couch in a dress she hadn't worn in over a year. Eyes wide. Smile unsure. I thought maybe we could talk, she said. I didn't sit. Didn't lean in. Just looked at her. Talk about what? She blinked. You've been different. I nodded. Yeah. She waited for more. Got nothing. Eventually, she stood, blew out the candles herself, and walked into the bedroom alone. And me? I stood there in that half-lit room, finally breathing air that didn't ask me to be anyone but myself. The silence was no longer the problem. It was the solution. It started with silence. Then came the attempts. Not apologies. Not really. Just edits. I didn't mean it like that, she said one night, standing at the edge of the bedroom like someone waiting for permission to come in. You know how I get when I'm tired. When I'm stressed. I didn't look up from my book. Because once a line is crossed, there's no clean walk back. Especially not when that line was drawn with contempt. You're just boring now. She had said it clearly, calmly. And now, a week later, she wanted to rewrite the script. But here's the thing about truth. It doesn't need volume. It doesn't need an audience. It slips out when the mask slips. You were upset, I said without emotion. But you don't accidentally say something like that. Not unless you believe it. Her mouth opened, closed. She blinked a few times, as if her brain was buffering a better excuse. I don't know. Things feel heavy lately. It's not really about you. Of course it wasn't. It never was. Everything was always circumstantial. Her mood, her stress, her cycle, her job. And I had always absorbed the impact. Smoothed the edges. Played the therapist, the provider, the peacekeeper. But I was done being the emotional janitor in a relationship where I was the only one cleaning up. I set the book down and stood, walking past her to the balcony. The air outside was sharp, clear. The kind that makes you feel awake. Inside, she stood in the hallway, arms crossed. Frustrated, not because she was losing me, but because I wasn't giving her the reaction she needed to reset the dynamic. She followed me out, barefoot on cold tile. So that's it, she asked, like I was the one quitting. After everything? I didn't turn around. I didn't explain. Because the hardest thing about leaving someone who doesn't respect you is realizing you taught them how to treat you by what you tolerated in silence. I'm tired, I said finally. Not angry. Just tired. That landed differently. Anger can be challenged. Tired? That's irreversible. That's what comes after years of small cuts you pretended didn't hurt. She walked away first that time. Back inside. Back to the room that didn't feel like home anymore. And I stayed out there for a while, letting the cold bite into my skin, letting it remind me I was still alive, still mine. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not respond, not correct, not repair. Just return the energy with interest. And in that silence, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. She couldn't control me anymore. So she tried controlling the narrative. It started small. A carefully staged selfie, coffee mug, soft light, fake peace. Captioned with something vague like, healing is messy but worth it. Then came the stories. Sunsets. Solo walks. Wine glasses raised toward the camera with glittery text overlays like, learning to love me again. As if Instagram could rewrite history. As if pixels could patch what she tore. I didn't react. Didn't text. Didn't ask who took the photo or what she was trying to prove. Because I already knew. She wasn't trying to move on. She was trying to make sure I saw her moving on. But it was all theater. I could see the strain in her smile, the lack of warmth in her eyes, the way her captions always sounded like they were written for someone else, not from within. That's the thing about social media. It reflects you back. And when you're hollow, the performance echoes. A few friends reached out. Mutuals. People who had seen us at our best, but hadn't heard the silence between us in months. Hey, is everything okay with Lauren? Her posts are different. One sent me a screenshot of her story. A quote about letting go of what no longer serves you, set against a filtered picture of her standing by a lake. I just replied, she's free now. That's what she wanted, right? No one responded after that. Because what else could they say? Everyone had seen the cracks. They just didn't know where they started. And me? I didn't post anything. Didn't change my profile picture. Didn't upload vague quotes or dramatic songs. I wasn't curating healing. I was living it. My apartment was quieter than it had ever been, and better for it. My mornings were slower. My meals simpler. And not once did I pick up my phone to document the peace. Because peace doesn't need witnesses. It just needs space. She tried again a few days later. Posted a boomerang of her glass clinking with someone else's faceless. Caption, finally laughing again. I smiled when I saw it. Not out of jealousy. Out of recognition. Because when someone starts broadcasting their joy like it's a commercial, it's usually because the product isn't selling. She wasn't laughing. She was performing. And the more she posted, the more it confirmed what I already knew. She missed the version of herself she had when I was steady beside her. The calm, the structure, the mirror. And now that I was gone, she didn't know who to be without an audience. The spotlight felt too bright without someone to reflect it back. And I had taken the mirror with me. It took longer than I expected. But it came. The message. Late at night, of course. Always after the world slows down. And regret gets louder. Are you really just going to let me go? No, hey. No explanation. Just raw desperation in a single line. I stared at it for a moment, not with anger, not even surprise, just calm detachment. She thought she still had access, even after everything, even after the silence, even after the words that can't be unsaid. You're just boring now. She had expected that to spark something. A change, a fight, a grand gesture. But instead, I gave her distance. And in that distance, she discovered the weight of what she'd lost. Not the attention, not the comfort, not the history, the peace. I used to carry that peace quietly. As a provider, a listener, a calm presence, something she leaned on, even when she didn't say it out loud. And when I took it back, the silence was deafening. Her next message came a few days later. I don't know who I am without you. It was supposed to be vulnerable, but it only made one thing clear. She hadn't really seen me as a person, just a function, a role, a quiet constant that made her chaos tolerable. But I wasn't a lighthouse for her storms anymore. I was on shore, rebuilding my own home. I didn't respond. And that silence? It shook her more than any argument could have. She tried again. More words. Longer paragraphs. Photos of old memories, little references to inside jokes. As if nostalgia could reverse erosion. But memories aren't redemption. They're echoes. And she was yelling into a canyon I'd already walked out of. One morning, I found a note slipped under my apartment door. Her handwriting smelled like her perfume. I was wrong. I didn't mean to hurt you. You were the best thing in my life. And maybe I was. But I was done being the best thing someone realizes too late. I folded the note. Didn't tear it. Didn't burn it. Just placed it in the drawer with old receipts and expired warranties. Because that's what it was now. Proof of something that once held value. But no longer applied. She once called me boring. Now she missed the stillness I brought. The steadiness. The space where she didn't have to perform. But here's the thing. When you mistake peace for passivity, you don't get to reach back. Once it's gone. Freedom felt awkward at first. Too quiet. Too light. Like I had forgotten how to carry a life that wasn't filled with walking on eggshells. But slowly, the noise faded. And what replaced it wasn't loneliness. It was peace. Mornings became mine again. Coffee brewed for one. No passive-aggressive silence across the table. Just steam, sunrise, and a playlist that didn't have to please anyone but me. I moved into a new place. Smaller, simpler, but every inch of it mine. No curated throw pillows. No meaningless quotes framed on the wall. No performance. Just air. Breathable air. I started going back to the gym regularly. Not to prove anything. Just to feel my own strength return, inch by inch. First my body. Then my voice. Then my self-worth. People noticed. Friends I hadn't seen in months started inviting me out again. Smiles came easier. Laughter didn't feel forced. And women. They didn't look through me anymore. There was a bar downtown where I started going on Thursdays. Nothing wild, just live music and decent beer. One night, a woman named Rachel sat beside me. Smart. Sharp. Present. She laughed at my dry sarcasm like it was a second language. Not once did she check her phone while I spoke. And when I walked her to her car, she looked me in the eyes and said, "You're different." I smiled. "I'm not. I just stopped wasting myself." And I meant it. For the first time in a long time. I wasn't explaining who I was. I was being who I was. Without apology. Without trimming my edges to make someone else more comfortable. Turns out, being boring just meant I wasn't chaotic. I wasn't reckless. I wasn't shallow. I was stable. I was loyal. I was someone you could count on until you treated that consistency like background noise. And now? Now that I had pulled all that loyalty inward, I was becoming the man I once reserved only for someone else's comfort. Except this time, he was mine. And he was thriving. Lauren used to call me predictable. Now people called me dependable. Grounded. Solid. And the truth? You can't replace that. Not with late-night texts. Not with social media stories. Not with rebound relationships built on distraction. Because chaos can be exciting. But peace? Peace is rare. And now that I had it, no one would ever mistake it for boring again. She thought she'd moved on. Posted it. Smiled through it. Held hands with a new man like she was trying to win a race I wasn't even running. He was louder. Flashier. The kind of guy who showed up with jokes, not depth. And at first, it worked. New pictures. Weekend getaways. Captions like "finally seen for who I really am." Aimed at me, not the world. But I didn't flinch. Because I'd seen that movie before. and I already knew how it ended. 3 months later, it cracked. I didn't hear it from her directly. Of course not. It came through a mutual friend who thought I should know. He left, they said. Said she was too much. Too demanding. Too intense. Too much. The irony burned in the back of my throat, but I didn't laugh. Didn't gloat. Because the truth is, she wasn't too much for the right person. She was just too used to never being told no. Too used to being the center of every room. Without realizing how quickly the spotlight fades when it's pointed at someone still performing. That same week, I got the message. Another midnight attempt. I miss what we had. I didn't realize how rare it was. He said I expected too much. But you always understood me. Can we just talk? I read it once. Didn't respond. She wasn't reaching for me. She was reaching for who I was. Before she broke it. The man who carried the weight. Who kept things steady while she searched for something more exciting. Who stood beside her while she rolled her eyes and called it routine. But stability isn't boring. It's rare. And when you lose it, chaos stops looking romantic real fast. I wasn't bitter. I was done. So I muted her number. Didn't block it. I wanted the silence to echo louder than rejection ever could. And then I went on with my day. Gym. Coffee. Work. Friends. A weekend hike that cleared my head better than therapy ever did. And for the first time, I didn't feel haunted. Just whole. Because healing isn't loud. It's not cinematic. It's not a speech or a scene. It's quiet mornings where you don't dread your phone. It's walking past a mirror and not second-guessing what she saw when she looked at you. It's knowing the man she dismissed was the foundation she never learned to appreciate. She wanted chaos dressed as passion. But the truth? I was never boring. I was stable. And now she knows the difference. It was a Sunday. Gray sky. Quiet street. The kind of morning that feels like it's waiting for something to break. I heard the knock before I saw her. Not frantic, just steady. Like she wasn't sure if she hoped I'd answer or not. I opened the door. There she was. Same coat. No makeup. Hair tied back like she hadn't planned this. Like she just needed to be there. She looked smaller. Not physically. Just less sure. The woman who once called me boring now stood on my doorstep like she didn't know how to hold herself up. I just wanted to talk, she said. I didn't move. Didn't invite her in. Didn't ask what changed. She looked around the apartment behind me, scanning for traces of the life we once shared. But she didn't find any. Because it wasn't hers anymore. It never really was. You look different, she said. I am. She hesitated. I didn't mean what I said. That night, I was frustrated. I was stupid. I nodded. Not to agree, just to acknowledge. She kept going. I've been doing a lot of thinking. And therapy. I realized how much I took for granted. You were always there. Always solid. I didn't see it until I lost it. I let the words sit between us. They didn't sting. They didn't heal. They just existed. Then she asked the question she came here for. Do you think we could ever fix it? I looked at her. Really looked. And in that moment, I realized I didn't hate her. I didn't even resent her. I just didn't need her anymore. Because closure isn't something you beg for. It's something you grow into. And I was already on the other side of it. You once called me boring, I said. Now you miss the calm, the loyalty, the peace. She nodded, slowly. Eyes glassy, like she knew this was goodbye. I don't blame you, she said. I wouldn't take me back either. And that was the truest thing she ever said. I stepped back slightly, just enough to close the door between us. I didn't change, I told her. I just stopped being convenient. She opened her mouth. Maybe to say sorry. Maybe to beg. But I didn't wait. The door clicked shut. Soft. Final. No slam. No drama. Just the sound of a man reclaiming his peace. I stood there for a moment, hand on the knob. No shaking. No second thoughts. Then I turned, walked back inside, and made coffee for one. And out on the porch, a woman who once thought she could say anything without consequence stood still, staring at a door that would never open again. Real men don't explode. They exit. Subscribe for more power stories.